Again, tomorrow they are planning on coming here again, and that's to show support for tomorrow's protest on that troubled island. Take a listen. Since the widespread protests back in July, the Cuban government has arrested hundreds of people. Afterwards, government officials claim the Cuban people had a legal right to protest peacefully. But will that be the case on November 15th? Cubans plan to once again take the streets demanding freedom and democracy. Videos on social media show a caravan belonging to the Cuban government is protesting against those that are opposed to the government. This video shows a man shouting liberty and moments later kicked out by people.
Tomorrow, I know the regime right now is actually attempting against many of them. They're going into their homes. They're actually getting them, pulling them out of their homes.
Cuban activist Mariela Jimenez, who has been in contact with a few on the island, says Junior Garcia, pictured in these images, was arrested multiple times during July's protest. Junior is an important leader of the 15N movement, and he has since been forced to barricade inside his home for walking down Havana, telling the Cuban people to not be afraid. These images show that a Cuban flag has been placed by the Cuban military to block his window. But earlier Sunday, he stuck his hand out holding a white rose.
And actually his house right now, they're surrounded. So basically what we're doing here today is supporting them. We're backing them up. So they're still going to come out. Even though the tyranny said to them, if you come out, we're going to repress against you.
On Sunday at Versailles, Jimenez stood with the many who protested for the Cuban people. Hundreds also gathered at Bayfront Park and on boats. Many laid white flowers for those who planned to protest in hopes of putting an end to 62 years of communism. Yvette Dominguez says her friend, Jose Carlos Melo, is one who has been arrested and released, but now 4 guards standing outside his home. She is praying for the best.
And he has done nothing but just speak his opinion on Twitter and on Facebook, and all he's calling for is for peaceful protests.
Now, sources tell us that the Cuban military is placing Cuban flags on those that they are watching and have forced to barricade inside of their homes. I'm live in Miami, Jessica Vallejo, CBS 4 News Tonight. Tonight, they share their horror stories. Getting information from Cuba has become even more difficult as the internet remains restricted. But this video shows the Cuban people are not giving up. This man fighting for freedom by himself. The source tells CBS 4 News many of the streets are empty. The communist government has arrested hundreds. Others have disappeared. While many wonder what could be happening, 2 former political prisoners told CBS 4 News they know firsthand what could happen. They will torture you continuously. They will not stop until you no longer claim liberty for Cuba. Jorge Luis Garcia Perez Antunes was a political prisoner for 17 years. At first, Antunes was sentenced to 5 years, but for refusing to wear a prisoner's uniform and going against the Castro communist regime. They didn't release him until 2007. He says he was tortured in solitary confinement. They strip you of your clothes so you freeze throughout the night. They inject you with unknown substances. The water I drank was out of my toilet, and every day when they would kill my friends who did just what those in Cuba are doing today, I would wonder if it was my day to go. This film, Plantados, is based on a real-life story. It depicts the horrors of political imprisonment. The Plantados were prisoners who refused a re-education plan in exchange for a sentence reduction. Jorge Moreno says he vividly remembers those times like it was yesterday. I didn't have a cell. They laid me in between 2 walls. It felt like if you were being ironed. I barely ate any food. I barely couldn't even move in there. I would just pray for the moment they would take me out. Although both these political prisoners suffered, they say they are proud of those who have flooded the streets of the troubled island, fighting against 62 years of no human rights. The Cuban government may be able to arrest everyone protesting, but what they will not end is their fight for a free Cuba. And out here at Versailles, we still see a small crowd out here, and this gentleman, many like this gentleman, holding the sign, Patria y Vida, which is homeland and life. I'm live in Miami, Jessica Vallejo, CBS 4 News Tonight.
Jessica Vallejo was at that rally today where organizers invited several Cuban artists to perform.
Jessica, now everyone was happy that the rally at one point turned into a concert, right?
That's right. The minute Gente de Zona actually started to perform a song, the crowd shut it down and demanded instead that their voices were heard, which is what people continue to do here. This is Calle Ocho. It still remains shut down. You can see people holding signs saying "Free Cuba," and behind this gentleman, you see that big crowd still here on Calle Ocho demanding a free Cuba.
Trying to help amplify their voices.
It was another day in Miami where Calle Ocho was flooded with many Cuban Americans standing in solidarity for the Cubans dying in their streets.
They have sticks and stones, and these people have guns. They're beating women to death. They're killing children. They're stealing, kidnapping children. It's heartbreaking, and they need help, you know?
Since Sunday, thousands of Cubans have taken the streets demanding for the end of 62 years of a Castro communist regime. It's been years of broken promises and lies. The dictatorship has suppressed the people from having basic human rights, food, medicine, or liberty. They say they are no longer afraid and tired of suffering and being tortured. And since the Cuban people have protested throughout the island, the government has cut the internet connection. But the people are begging those on social media to share what's happening.
The videos are sickening.
This video was posted on Instagram. It shows a woman begging the Cuban police not to shoot inside her home, but her husband is shot and taken while her children were inside. Social media flooded with videos of not just police beating, shooting, and arresting those speaking out, but now also taking in young teenagers, forcing them to go against their own people and family.
They're asking the kids to fight for their own country. They don't, they get killed. It's bad, really, really bad.
And while Cuba remains in the streets, so does Miami. Wednesday, Cuban Americans continued to chant, "Down with communism, liberty." At the protest, local artists like Gente de Zona took the stage to sing their Cuban patriotic song, Patria y Vida. And as they went to perform a second song, it was shut down by the crowd, demanding to have their voices heard instead. Yotuel, who sings Patria y Vida instead, did not take the stage and called on the U.S. to do something.
If we don't do anything now, nothing's going to change.
And again, this is Calle Ocho. People still out here, and they're chanting freedom for Cuba. And again, this is not about those COVID-19 cases rising in Cuba. This is about 62 years of a communist Cuba, and they're tired. I'm live in Miami, Jessica Vallejo, CBS 4 News.
Jessica, thank you.
Thousands of Cubans have taken the streets begging for freedom. Calling for the end of 62 years of a Castro communist regime that has suppressed the people from having basic human rights of food, medicine, or liberty.
I've been persecuted for so many years, and for them to come out and do that, that takes a lot of courage.
They say they are no longer afraid and tired of suffering. Since the Cuban people have protested throughout the island, the government has cut internet connection. But the people are begging those on social media to share what's happening. This video posted on Instagram shows a woman begging Cuban police not to shoot inside her home. But her husband is shot and taken while her children are inside. Social media is flooded with videos of not just police beating, shooting, and arresting those speaking out, but now also taking in young teenagers, forcing them to go against their own people and family.
Getting walked on, stepped on, beat on, just for walking, just for protesting like what we're doing here.
And in Miami, people are flooding the streets of Calle Ocho, chanting, "If Cuba's in the streets, so is Miami."
Heartbreaking to see what's going on in Cuba.
They have sticks and stones, and these people have guns. They're beating women to death. They're killing children. They're stealing, kidnapping children. It's heartbreaking, and they need help.
And here in Calle Ocho, that concert is still going on. People in Miami standing in solidarity for all those Cubans, and they constantly chanting "Libertad, liberty." I'm live in Miami, Jessica Vallejo, CBS 4 News. Happening in Cuba, a protester is being lifted by his fellow Cubans. In Spanish, they are saying to the Cuban military, "You killed him, you are murderers." While CBS 4 cannot confirm their authenticity, this is just one of the many videos posted on social media from the troubled island that appear to show abuses committed by the communist Cuban government against its own people.
Someone needs to do something, whether it's the United States, whether it's fellow Caribbean countries, whether it's Canada, Mexico. Someone needs to help because the people cannot arm themselves against a tyrannical government.
In Miami, Cuban Americans say they can no longer sit back and watch their own people suffer, killed on the streets as they fight for the end of 62 years of communism.
What we're seeing now live because of social media is the reality of what this government is and what they do.
And while the internet connection remains cut in Cuba, some people have found a way to still flood social media with what's happening. They're asking to help them. This video posted on Twitter shows the Cuban police beating a man who was protesting. You hear people screaming in Spanish, "Do not kill him." As police walk away, the man lays motionless on the sidewalk. And since the protests began on Sunday, police are now going into homes and taking teenagers, forcing them to fight against their own people and family. Here, a family begs the authorities to let the teenager go, but they take him away. And in this video, you see young teenagers put in the front lines, blocking protesters. Cubans saying, "Don't be afraid" to them. You hear them saying in Spanish, "Liberate yourself." This woman who just arrived to Miami from Cuba says in Spanish, quote, "It's really bad, but we are hopeful for any sort of help because there is too much suffering. No medicine, no food. Everyone is in the streets. We need some protection, and people need to continue to protest." And while Cuba remains in the streets, so does Miami, standing in solidarity, asking for the U.S. to send them help.
It's not about vaccines. It's not about food. It's about freedom.
And out here in Versailles, many Cuban Americans remain out here standing in solidarity for those Cubans back on the island. I'm live at Versailles, Jessica Vallejo, CBS 4 News Tonight. Happening in Cuba, shots continue to be fired at the Cubans taking the streets fighting for the end of communism. In Spanish, you hear them scream, "He has a gun, run." This is just one of the many videos posted on social media from the troubled island that shows the abuses committed by the communist Cuban government against its own people. Cuban Americans furious.
I don't watch them anymore. Every time I turn them on, I see them getting hurt, killed, beaten. Truthfully, nothing will happen unless if the U.S. takes some military action.
The internet in Cuba remains restricted. Santiago from Cuba says he doesn't even know if his family back home is alive.
They cut out their internet so they can't even communicate and tell how they're feeling.
On Friday, CBS 4 News noticed fewer videos shared on social media. A family we spoke to says some in Cuba were using a VPN. It is not known if the Cuban government took control of that too, but a few have made it through. And what you see is hundreds still flooding the streets of Cuba. In another part of the country, the street of this neighborhood is empty. A woman says in Spanish, they have arrested everyone. And this video posted on Instagram shows the people of Cuba still getting arrested, brutally beaten, and killed. According to the Human Rights Watch, nearly 400 have been arrested, and those are the ones reported.
What they're asking for is for freedom.
Santiago, who came just 10 years ago, says he chose to flee his country, and he says the sea is a journey often perilous but driven by despair. But not everyone is so lucky. The Coast Guard reporting nearly 20 Cubans died in recent weeks.
Air One, they just had a wave take them out. The boat just flipped over.
Beatriz Jimenez's daughter and 2 grandchildren were lost at sea in March, along with 9 others. Beatriz says her daughter was trying to reunite with her husband in Florida. She says in Spanish, "My daughter is a good woman. She wouldn't have done this if everything wasn't safe, if everything wasn't okay." And Cubans picked up by the U.S. Coast Guard are brought back to the island under an agreement between the 2 countries. This woman and her 8-month-old baby were among the migrants recently returned to Cuba. And back out here at Versailles, Miami continues to stand in solidarity for those Cubans. Right now it's raining here. This is Versailles, and those hundreds of people right now underneath that roof. I'm live in Miami, Jessica Vallejo, CBS 4 News Tonight.